Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope that you can see us, and we are all ready to talk to you this morning about graphic novels. I lied to you last week when I told you I was guest hosting, because now I'm back to being me. But the reason is because in the Department of Penguin Random House Library Marketing, I have the honor of working with a lot of our graphic novel publishers. So once a year, I put together a library con for all of you at our various conferences, at ALA Annual usually. But this year, because we couldn't meet in person, we are doing this for you. We have such an incredible lineup this morning. We are so happy that you're here and that you're joining us. And we promise you 2 hours of nothing but fun and a lot of really informative graphic novels, as well as fun graphic novels, a lot of own voices, a lot of important books, and, you know, a celebrity or two here. So we're so super duper excited. We're 3 or 4. So I am Kelly Coyle Crivelli. We are going to have everybody introduce themselves as they come on. We are going to get to our first panel in a second. I just wanted to give you a little bit of I'm just going to give you a little bit of a heads up of what's coming. Our first panel is going to be with Carmen, Miriam Machado, and Grady Hendrix. Our second panel is going to be with Matt Lubchansky, Laurie Halse Anderson, and moderated by New York Public Librarian Elisa Garcia. Then after that, we have a short little snippet of buzz titles for you that Miriam, Erica, and I will present. And then we are going to end off the day with a very special panel for you from Pat and Frankie Vegas, which is going to be about nonfiction graphic novels and a conversation about his book, Redbone. So thank you so much for coming and joining us this morning. This is going to be really fun. I will say that I just told all of my wonderful panelists that I am going to do my best to get through this without any technical glitches. So we promise you that we will be as smooth as possible, but if you have any issues, we'll try to deal with them at the same time. There is somebody manning the Q&A button, so feel free to, if you have any problems, to put them in there. And if you have any questions for the panelists, we will try to get to them. You can put them in to the chat box as well. And we will try to get to them at the end of some of their panels. So thank you again for joining us. Good morning, Carmen and Grady, and Miriam is going to introduce you, and then we'll start our show. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special edition of Morning Book Buzz. I'm so honored to introduce our first guest speakers for this opening session, Oh, the Horror. Carmen Maria Machado is the author of the forthcoming book, The Low, Low Woods, published by Hill House Comics. She's also the author of the memoir In the Dream House and the short story collection Her Body and Other Parties. She's been a finalist for the National Book Award and winner of numerous awards, including the Lambda Literary Award for Lesbian Fiction, the Brooklyn Public Library Literature Prize, and the National Book Critics Circle's John Leonard Prize. Carmen's essays, fiction, and criticism have appeared in several publications, including The New Yorker, The New York Times, Granta, Guernica, Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy, and Best American Non-Required Reading. She holds an MFA from the Iowa Writers Workshop and is the writer-in-residence at the University of Pennsylvania. Carmen will be in conversation with Grady Hendrix, the novelist and screenwriter based in New York City. He is the author of the Library Reads favorite, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, as well as Horror Store, My Best Friend's Exorcism, Paperbacks from Hell, and We Sold Our Souls, all of which have received critical praise from numerous outlets, including NPR, The Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and the Wall Street Journal, and many more. He is a contributor to Playboy, The Village Voice, and Variety. Welcome, Carmen and Grady.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I never know what to do with my face when people read my bio. What do you do, Carmen? Do you go glassy, or do you try to look thoughtful?
I actually go somewhere completely else. I don't even know how to read. I'm like, who's that they're talking about? I don't know.
It's funny. I actually haven't read the Lolo Woods yet. Are there review issues out, or?
There's a digital, I believe, digital arcs. I actually don't know the word or what they call it, an arc or galley. This is my first graphic novel.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's what they actually call it, but
something.
Yeah.
No, just
so the issues themselves are already out in print. But yeah, the full book that's going to be like collected, which I've seen. Oh my God, the design of it is going to be so beautiful. It has this like beautiful like vellum cover. It's going to be so pretty. I'm really excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't imagine anything worse than writing a horror comic book, because you have the visuals, but you don't get to pace the reader like a horror movie would. But at the same time, you can't do it like just plain prose can, which is, you do the Lovecraft. Oh, it was unimaginable. You can't even believe how terrible it was. So I don't know how do you thread that needle,
Well, I didn't draw it, which is the first step in a successful graphic novel, as me not being the artist. I mean, certainly there is. I mean, it's been really, I don't know if you've ever done any sort of graphic work, but I've done some graphic novel stuff before. Yeah, like it's such a different process than writing prose. And like, I remember in the very beginning, like when Joe was sort of helping, I was getting a lot of like, because I should say I started writing it because like they reached out to me and were like, we love your fiction. Have you ever thought about writing a comic? And I was like, yeah, but I don't know one thing about writing comics. And they're like, we'll show you. And I was like, oh, it involves scripts. Like, oh my God, this is like, it was already like way outside of my comfort zone. And I remember like someone telling me, like one of my editors telling me, if you have a surprise in a graphic novel or a comic, you want it on the even number page, because you want to like turn the page, and then there's like a surprise. Like you don't want to have the surprise like on the right page, on the odd numbered page. And I was like, yeah, that never would have occurred to me in 10 million years. Like I'm like, you told me that. So yes, I feel like the whole thing was about adjusting to this whole new way of working, and one of it was like having an artist like trying to describe this thing that I was imagining, and then having an artist render it, which is like a very odd process, but actually really beautiful and really rewarding. And I feel like added this sort of dimension to it that it is like this sort of collaborative thing, right? Where it's like, it's my imagination, but it's also like this artist's skills and her way of interpreting like what I was thinking and what I'm saying. And it was just, I don't know, it was like a really interesting process.
Did you do it fully scripted, like panel by panel?
I did, yeah. I mean, I sort of like, it's not like a real script. Like, I don't know what kind of, and it does have some like prosy tendencies. Like I do have like, each issue is narrated by the opposite character. So there's two main characters, and it's one then the other. And so there is like a narrative voice, which like would be really hard to pull off in like a film unless you had like a voiceover. So there are some like prose tendencies that remain, because I like that sort of voicey narration. That's like a thing I really enjoy. But yeah, I had to think visually. Like I was like, okay, in this panel, like we're looking at the girls on their bikes, but like it's through like a tree or like whatever. Like I had to describe like each panel, but then they would suggest things like the editor or the artist would be like, I was thinking about this panel, and I was thinking like, what if we did it from this perspective? And she would like show me like a little drawing, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So it was like collaborative, but I did do it like panel by panel.
Yeah, it just seems like it'd be so hard to control the pacing.
Well, I mean, I had to like outline the whole thing. I mean, it was a totally like, I never outline. Like when I write prose, I tend to just go into my work with a sense of adventure. Like I'm like, what will I find today? I have no idea. And there's this process of discovery that happens when I'm writing. But for this, it's like I had to map out the whole thing. I had to like, here's the arc of the 6 issues, which like was ultimately very helpful when I was like, I was like, oh, I'm glad that I did that for this project in particular, because then it forced me to like have to think about like, and it's also why like I'm not a novelist. Like I write short stories and I write essays, and I have yet to write like a big single fictional project where I have to think and sort of manipulate the structure in that way. So like,
really, you don't think of Dream House that way?
Well, no, because I feel like Dream House is a big cheat, because I wrote a bunch of tiny little chapters
It's very. I know. When I was reading, I was like, "Oh my God, it's like James Patterson doing literary." It's like every page is a new chapter. It was awesome.
Well, it's so funny because also, like, when I wrote that book, like, I wrote the chapters out of order, and then when my editor was like, "Hey, we need to put these in order," I was like, "Can you do it?" And he did. My editor put the whole book in order. Like, I was like, "I can't do it. It's too hard." And he was like, "I got you. This is my job." And he
that's kind of
like,
amazing.
And it was funny because I was using Scrivener, so I had all the documents like in the corner, and so he had to download Scrivener, and then I sent him a Scrivener document, and then he was moving it around, and he texted me at some point. It was like, "This is like playing a video game. This is really strange," because he was just moving the bits around.
Scrivener's the best. I just I have to use Word whatever because that's what everyone uses once you get to those final drafts.
Sure, same. Yeah.
It feels like chopping off your hands after using Scrivener.
Well, and I find Scrivener useful like for certain kinds of like for that project it was helpful because I was moving stuff around and like I feel like for other I didn't use it for my first book, but definitely was helpful for the memoir. But yeah, so I didn't even really put it in order. So like I don't know. So maybe one day I'll write an actual novel that requires me to like outline the structure beforehand. But like I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Not broke, don't fix it.
I know right. Exactly.
So wait, were you a comic book kid growing up?
No, not really. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to read comic books and I wanted to play video games, and I was not allowed to do either. My mother was like very weird about stuff like that. And now I'm like a late in life comic aficionado / video game aficionado. Like I'm like, aha! Now that I'm 34, I can do whatever I want. Take that.
But did your mom just think they weren't like smart or they were like low class?
She thought they were going to rot my brain. You know, she just had ideas. It was like, you know, the early 90s, which you've written about so beautifully in your most recent book, and like felt very familiar in a lot of ways. And yeah, my mom just had these ideas about TV and about like I was only allowed to watch like PBS. And like, you know, and I wasn't really allowed. She had a lot of feelings about movies that had like kids. Like her least favorite thing in children's movies was when kids sass off to adults. Like it made her crazy.
Oh yeah.
She hated it. So yeah, so I was just a lot of like navigating that as a kid. And I mean, like when I was reading prose, she didn't have enough desire to read the books I was reading at the library. So that was like the way that I read. Like I read a lot of stuff I should not have read as a child. Like I read a lot of like V.C. Andrews, like a lot of work that was like really inappropriate for my age because my mom was like, it looks fine, you know, because she didn't want to actually have to read, go through it. She's like, yeah, it's a book. How bad could it be? And I was like, oh, you have no idea.
Exactly. But, you know, is V.C. Andrews inappropriate? I feel like 11 is about when people should run across V.C. Andrews and Stephen King. 11, 12.
I mean, I don't know, maybe all the, like, incest and, like, graphic sexual activity.
I'm from South Carolina. That's just a family reunion.
I mean, well, that was the thing is I read V.C. Andrews when I was, like, 11, which I feel like is when a lot of people, like, run across her books at, like, they're not young adult books technically, but I feel like a lot of people read them as, like, young people.
Yeah.
And they were, like, demented. I mean, they were, like, truly offensive I remember there was this one series, it was Heaven. And
I haven't read the Heaven series,
Oh, so that was about a girl who gets her drunk father sells her and her brother off for adoption, and then she ends up like having sex with her stepfather. And there's a scene where the stepmother gets so angry when she finds out they're sleeping together that she disembowels her pet hamster in a bathtub, which has stayed with me, like the image of the disemboweled hamster has stayed with me for so long. And also then there's later the stepmother gets breast cancer, but her breasts are so big that they can't find the cancer in time, and then she dies. So that is also, so there's like several like bits of that book that have stayed with me for literally my entire life, and that's it. So yeah, those books are like not for children, but like children read them constantly. And they have this amazing, like the window flap.
Yeah, with the die cut. Yeah.
Oh my God. If I ever in my life, I'll know I've accomplished something as a writer when I get a die cut cover.
Yeah. When I did Paperbacks from Hell, I wanted a die cut cover so badly. And apparently bookstore buyers hate them because they get damaged.
Oh, because they rip, sure. That makes sense.
So I wasn't allowed to pull one off. But maybe our hopes are on you.
I mean, I must say, your books, I mean, I remember reading Horror Store a million years ago and being like, the design of this book, like all your books are so beautiful. And this one I was also admiring that even though it's like traditional prose. Like, I was like, oh my God, the design of this book is so beautiful. Like,
well, Andy Reid, who's the art director over at Quirk, did that cover, the Peaches, and it is, I hope she got a bonus, because like it is very, very hard to draw two peaches that don't look like a piece of the anatomy. Like it was a butt-biting vampire for about 12 iterations.
Sure, of course. I mean, yeah, the cover is, I was just admiring. Yeah, it's just gorgeous.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So.
No, but it's funny. VCH, I think the Heaven series was one that was like Andrew Niederman was already the ghostwriter for VC Andrews.
Yeah, because she died. She died after like her second book or something. She died like really early. Yeah.
So I don't even think she'd gotten to. So that's so weird, because like My Sweet Audrina, I don't know if you remember that one. Like,
oh yeah, I remember My Sweet Audrina. No,
that's a VC Andrews, and it's one that like it's. I don't know, man. I'm with John Waters, sort of like good taste is the enemy of art. But like there is no good taste in My Sweet Audrina, but it never feels It never feels sexist, exploitative.
Well, I mean, it's all very like, I mean, it's deeply gothic. Like I feel like it like exists in this tradition, this very sort of female author driven tradition of like the gothic and like this sort of pulpy sensibility that just, I don't know, like it's really, I don't know, they really spoke to me, and I feel like I think about those books a lot, and I'm like, in the sense that like all books that I've read, good and bad, have influenced me, and everything I read and consume like influences me in some way, and I feel like those books were really formative, like in these really interesting ways that like I'll probably never be able to like untangle, like, and I'm really glad that I read them, even though when I was 11 I was like, what is that? Oh.
Oh, totally. Well, also, there's something so weird when you're talking about Heaven. Like, can you have breasts so big someone can't detect breast cancer? Like,
I don't know.
To me. I'm not sure that's like, accurate.
I don't think it is, but also like once I started developing then I was like, oh my God, when I get that breast cancer where they can't find
no one will find it.
Like I feel like it's like, I don't know if that's true. Like Flowers in the Attic is like a fundamentally insane. Like the premise of all these books are like completely bananas, but like,
oh yeah,
who cares? I mean, I also read like a lot of like Stephen King and R.L. Stine and like Christopher Pike. Like, I mean, I was really on that like.
Christopher Pike is insane. I mean, in the best way.
Yeah. So speaking of Christopher Pike, so of all the things that have stuck with me, like I feel like all these books have like bits that stuck with me, and the Christopher Pike, there was that one book of his whose title I can't remember, but at the very end, the twist is that someone has fed somebody else a hamburger full of ground glass. Do you remember
The Immortals.
No,
the one about the Greek goddesses. Yes,
and they're like, and you're now hemorrhaging in your body, and you're all gonna die. And I remember just being like, whoa! And like literally, whenever I bite into a hamburger, I'm 34 years old. I probably read that book when I was 12, and like I think about it every time. Like, well, I hope this hamburger is not full of ground glass that will slowly kill me. Like,
I hope I'm not a reincarnated immortal Greek goddess who's being poisoned.
I hope that too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, R.L. Stine's funny because he's a little sleepy. Like, I'm not a huge R.L. Stine fan. Like, every chapter ends with someone being like, oh my God, and turning around. It's just someone being like, oh, you dropped your wallet, lady. And, it's always like, she woke up, there was a dead body next to her bed. And the next chapter's like, it was the shirt she'd taken off the night before. Like, but Christopher Pike is seriously unhinged in such an amazing way.
Well, he was like R.L. Stine, but sexy. Like, I feel like that, it was like there was like this level of sex appeal to Christopher Pike that R.L. Stine was a little for like a slightly younger audience, I think.
Yeah. Well, Christopher Pike kids are always going to parties and getting drunk and doing cocaine and having sex and
Exactly, yeah.
And there was always this. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that wasn't happening in R.L. R.L. Stine was like, I got a camera and it kills people or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, and there was also this thing with Christopher Pike that was like, I always found very liberating, like, you're a teenager, but you might be a reincarnated ancient Egyptian goddess, or maybe you're an alien or a serial killer. We don't know. You could be a robot from the future. Like, teens could be anything.
Did you ever read Lois Duncan? Were you a Lois Duncan fan?
Lois Duncan I run hot and cold on. Like, I find some of her straight up thrillers a little bit pat, But Daughters of Eve, I think, is amazing.
Daughters of Eve so that I remember reading her. So like I loved her when I was a teen, and I wrote it when she died a few years ago. I wrote this piece for the New Yorker about it because she was so formative for me. And I remember her, and I think of her, like rereading her for that article, I kept thinking of like, I feel like she's got this like weird, like Shirley Jackson-ish energy that I think is like really interesting. And like, also like her personal life. Do you know the story of like her personal
with her
life?
daughter?
With her daughter, yeah. So I remember when I was a kid, like reading all her books that I could find and really loving them. And then like reading that book where she believes that like her daughter was like killed by a conspiracy and that like she predicted her daughter's death and all these like really intense things and like how that like shaped her and kind of like I don't know, like it was like really sad and tragic. And I remember being like, I was so young when I read it, but I was just like, this is like bigger than it was like feelings and emotions and situations that like felt like really huge to me in this way that I had never encountered before. But her books, Daughters of Eve is like that image of that final image of the girl hitting her father with the frying pan, like also has stuck with me for a million years. Yeah. Well, and like, yeah, I don't know.
And it's also, you know, it's weird too, because with Lois Duncan, like everyone saw her processing her grief in as close to real time as you could get, like as she wrote these books about it, which really I found there was an urge to avert my eyes, but also this kind of amazing, you know, it's a little bit like Anne Rice. I mean, she wrote Interview with the Vampire, complete alcoholic train wreck right after her 5-year-old daughter had died of leukemia. I mean, no wonder that first book is such a tremendous bummer. It's like amazing as sexy as it is.
I mean, I feel like there is something really interesting about reading a piece of writing that has that sense. And I feel like it's like the je ne sais quoi. It's like a thing you can't put your finger on, but it's like, I feel like I'm reading something that's like cut from somebody's like emotional soul cloth.
Yeah.
In this way that like maybe another book, while maybe more technically accomplished, would not feel that same way. And it's like you're getting this sort of unfiltered, and there's a nakedness to it. I think it's like very disarming, but also very addictive, especially when you're a kid and you're like, what's the world offer me? Like I'm hunting down, like I just want to know like what's out there. What's out there in the world? Oh my God, it's like
it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's horrible. Like the world is terrifying. Yeah, and I feel like for me, like I was always hunting that down as a kid. Like that was like the thing that I was always moving toward. You know, and I grew up in the suburbs. Like I didn't experience any major tragedy as a child. Like I was really just like hunting this like emotional, this like main line of like emotional truth. You know, like human experience. And
well, it's the same way as a kid. You get in a car, you know, hey, we're going to this party. You don't know these guys. Okay, sure. You know, like I want something real to happen to me. But yeah, and you know, it's interesting too, because I look at someone like Stephen King, who's just so prolific, and that becomes its own kind of rawness, you know, in the sense of like if you look at The Shining, he wrote the first draft of that in something like 6 weeks. And when you look at the word count, you're like, so you're writing 4,000, 5,000 words a day, 7 days a week? Like, that's automatic writing at a certain point. Like, that's just, he's not an outliner. That's just like, bang.
He's really interesting. Yeah, and I like you, I run really hot and cold on Stephen King. Like, I feel like some of his work is, like, really amazing. Some of it I've tried, and I've been like, But, like, I remember when I read, like, that some of his books, he has no memory of writing them because he was, like, on a cocaine bender. I was like, that tracks to me.
Well, it's also interesting to read the stuff he wrote when he was recovering from the getting hit by the van. Because his way of writing about pain suddenly gets so much more on the body and so much realer. It's really interesting.
I mean, I feel like that's the real beauty of, like, getting to read, like, an author's total oeuvre, or getting to read like across like watching and like reading an author's like body of work and knowing kind of what was happening in their life and seeing the way that like writing is shaped by like the stuff that's going on in your, you know, how it's changing, like how it's reflecting like real life stuff. I don't know. I always find that exercise very interesting.
It was also. Did you read either of the Shirley Jackson biographies, the Ruth Franklin?
I read the Ruth Franklin one. Yeah.
The one before it's good too. It actually covers different stuff, but it was really interesting to go back to her work after reading like a I'm a big Shirley Jackson junkie, and like
I assume so with the James Harris character.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Nicely spotted. Yeah.
I was like reading that and I was like, is that on purpose? I was like Googling. I was like, that must be on purpose. That'd be a very weird coincidence. But yeah.
Well, yeah, but also like there's some authors I sort of adopt when I'm writing a book. And for me, like I read Life Among the Savages and Raising Demons like twice each when I was writing Southern Book Club, just because she's great. And I think those books are really appreciated. But, you know, you look at sort of like just how lonely she was in her life, in her marriage, where her kids are age-wise, when she wrote Hill House. And you're like, oh, my God, of course, whatever walks there walks alone. It's lonely. That's hell for Shirley Jackson, to be alone. Like, I don't know, it's just really, I felt very like, oh, it all makes sense to me.
Yeah, no. I completely agree. And I actually just reread Hill House when the pandemic started. His friend and I were having a phone chat, and every day I would read them a little piece of Hill House. And I had never read it out loud before. I'd only ever read it, you know, to myself. Oh. There was something really like profound and interesting about hearing it out loud and like hearing it in my mouth and like, I don't know. And that novel is so good. I mean, it's my favorite. It's like basically my favorite ever. But
well, that and Toni Morrison's Beloved, I think. I mean, those are the two horror novels for the 20th century, kind of period, full stop, you know?
Totally. I actually taught a haunted house class at Penn a couple years ago, and we did like I taught Hill House, I taught Beloved, and like a bunch of other. Like, I don't know if you've ever. Oh, have you ever read The House Next Door by Anne River?
Oh, Anne River Siddons. Yeah,
it's so good. I taught that one too. Though the students really struggled with that one. They like were not crazy about that book. But
why not? I'm kind of curious.
Well, I think it was because the book has so much. Like it's dealing with a lot of like it's because it's from the 70s, which I feel like when you read it, it's so fresh. Like it doesn't feel dated, except for like a case. And then you read it and you're like, oh, so it's like stuff about like anti-Semitism and like homosexuality, but like written by somebody in the South in the 70s. So like, I think the students felt a little like stressed out about some of the things that happen in the book.
Oh.
But I find that book unbelievably riveting. And like, I always think about because she's her only horror novel, right? Like she's written mostly like stuff, you know. And there's this really good H.P. Lovecraft has this essay about horror that I teach, where he talks about how like sometimes cosmic horror is so intense that writers who otherwise don't write horror will write like one horror novel because they have to like discharge this like cosmic horror energy. So he talks about like you know, Henry James writing like a Turn of the Screw. So this idea that like some writers, like, they mostly don't write horror, but then every so often it's, like, the horror of existential fear, like, it's so intense that, like, they have to be like, I gotta write a horror novel to, like, get all that, like, all the willies out or whatever. And I feel like that novel feels that way to me, where it feels like there's something so, like, disturbing about it, and I love it.
Well, and it's so, have you read any of her other books?
I haven't. I mean, after I read that book, I was like, what else has she written? And like everything else I've read about, I was like, nothing that, I mean, it sounds like interesting, but like nothing that like I felt very drawn to. But
it's interesting to read one of her other books because they're often set with sort of these yuppie characters in the southern suburbs. And it's like, whoa, like you said, it's like she wrote these books and suddenly like just built up this like chart, because it's really constructed of the same pieces, just used for sort of nefarious ends, you know?
Totally. Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah. And I remember like reading it and being like, I don't know. Some people really hate reading books about like rich people being idle, but I'm like, I love nothing more than reading novels about rich people being idle and like being terrible. And I was like, I will happily read this novel about like these rich white people like doing blow and like fucking all day. Like, I'm totally fine reading a novel like that. And then also like maybe The House Next Door is haunted.
Exactly.
That feels I'm like, I will read 50 novels about that.
Why else is Keeping Up with the Kardashians and like Succession popular? Like
exactly. Right. That's like watching Succession too. I'm like, God, I could watch this for 50 million years.
Oh yeah. So I think they're about to tap dance us off stage.
Great. Oh, okay. So they're going to be talking to you. Yeah, you too, man. 90s horror. I will talk about this all day long.
I know. Me too.
Well, thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the chat.
Thank you so much, Grady and Carmen. Carmen Maria Machado's forthcoming book is The Low, Low Woods, a publication of Hill House Comics, and Grady Hendrix's most recently Library Reads loved book is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Quirk Books.
You guys, thank you so much. We knew that you were going to wake everybody up and get them going. If we had like horror panel bingo, anybody had incest, disbowelment, anatomy of peaches, you are the winner.
Excellent.
It's all about winning.
Thank you for waking us up. We knew that you would. I knew that you two would get along so well, so I'm so glad. So thank you guys so much for starting us off today.
Excellent, of course.
We'll talk to you soon. Good luck with everything and stay safe.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. All right. We just wanted to make sure you were all paying attention this morning. Good morning. That was a great start. I knew those two were going to be fun. They had just met this morning, but I've met both of them before, and I knew that they were going to get along well. You could just tell. And I'm sure everybody was jotting down lots of horror books that they want to read that they were talking about. And so thank you for joining us for that panel. Now we're going to switch gears, and we're going to be talking about graphic novel anthologies. And I am just going to introduce our next panelists for you. I will say that these events, especially, I'm sure all of you know, with technology on Zoom or WebEx, whatever you're using, they're very, the minutia of putting them together is challenging. But then when it comes together, and then you get to sit back and you get to appreciate who you actually have on the panel, it's humbling. So that being said, I'm going to introduce our next two panelists and our wonderful librarian for joining us today. And thank you. We're so thrilled that you're here, and we're honored to have you this morning. Matt Lubchansky. And Matt, how are you? You're back. I see you.
Yes, hi. I'm doing good.
Is a queer, non-binary cartoonist, the 2020 Urblock Prize finalist, and associate editor of Ignate's award-winning magazine and website, The Nib. Their work has appeared in The Nib, Playboy, Mad Magazine, Current Affairs, In These Times, Eater, Gothamist, you name it, Brooklyn Magazine, New York Magazine, Food and Wine, The Toast, etc. Also, the co-author of Dad Magazine, which came out from Quirk in 2016, which I personally loved so much. Matt lives in Queens, New York, and we're super excited to have you here today. We're also super thrilled to have Laurie Halse Anderson here today. She's a New York Times bestselling author known for tackling tough subjects with humor and sensitivity. Two of her books, Speak and Chains, were National Book Award finalists, and Chains was also shortlisted for the United Kingdom's Carnegie Medal. She was also selected by the American Library Association for the Margaret A. Edwards Award for her significant contribution to young adult literature. Laurie has also been honored for her battle for intellectual freedom by the National Coalition Against Censorship. We are super happy to have you here today. And also, just as a side note, Laurie is the mother of one of our favorite librarians, just so you all know. And I just want to introduce Elisa Garcia. Elisa, thank you for joining us today. She's a supervising librarian of teen services at the New York Public Library and the vice president-elect of the Northeast chapter of Reforma. She is motivated to foster a love of reading in reluctant teen readers and strives to introduce them to a diverse world and experience through books. Mentoring new librarians, Elisa savors the opportunities to broaden her scope in promoting diversity in librarianship. And getting reluctant teen readers to read is probably on the top of one of the hardest things to do. So thank you for all of your hard work, Elisa, and you guys can have a nice little conversation here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kelly. Hi, Laurie. Hi, Matt. I'm super excited to be in conversation with the two of you today. So these are two new upcoming anthologies. I'm thrilled about them, and I can't wait for the rest of our colleagues to hear about them and just what they're about and how impactful I believe they will be. So I want to start off. So anthologies are actually one of my favorite things to recommend. And one of the reasons why is because I feel that so many voices are given an opportunity to be heard through anthologies, and own voices are important. So for me as a librarian working in the Bronx, working with teens, I love books that are own voices and kids can see themselves in these books. So that's what I find between these two anthologies. They're two different things, but own voices are coming through in both of the anthologies. So I just want to hear what was the approach, in coming for these anthologies to come together, and just like the timeline, the approach to it, and the inspiration behind it. So you guys can either Laurie or Matt, yeah.
All right, I will dive into it. As we were waiting for our program to come up, I was editing another one of the little short snippets in my anthology, our anthology. It's definitely a teamwork approach. My Wonder Woman graphic novel, which came out last month, it's a little bit different than I think people have seen Wonder Woman before, in that she lives in Queens. She comes from Themyscira and winds up in Astoria, and it's largely a story that is set in the real world. Like, the villain is a real villain, the developer, just for the record. And so because that's the kind of thing that I write a lot. And when I was working on it, what I kept on kind of holding fast to was the need for my version of Wonder Woman, because she's 16, to be like that combination that we know is like at the core of Wonder Woman, of compassion and justice. So the whole process itself was wonderful. And then coming out of that writing process, the wonderful people at DC said, would you want to be an editor on an anthology about other real life Wonder Woman? And it was just, this last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to do some new stuff in terms of different kinds of approaches to storytelling, and this has been so amazing. So we have, I can't disclose the entire, all of the women involved in this project. That will be unveiled, I think it's on August the 22nd at the DC Fandom virtual event. But we have a collection of writers and we have a collection of artists. Almost all of them are own voices. Who are reflecting, this is nonfiction, for another change for me, real life Wonder Women, real life girls and women who took on something an equity, injustice in the world, and they changed it. That's one of the things that I love most about working with teens. And I know every librarian out there, you guys know this. And first of all, all love and respect, especially in this hard time. Because you're the ones who are on the front lines of making sure that all of our children and our teenagers are feeling seen and valued, and you offer them the resources they need. Some of our kids have been had to lock down, especially in the Northeast, sometimes with people who aren't treating them well. And I know that when they can start reaching out to their librarians and get the support they need, that's going to help make life a lot better. And I'm already totally distracted. So let's come back, Laurie, Beth, let's come back. So yeah, this is a collection of short stories. I just read the one about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and we're really holding her in our thoughts as well. The new one that came in is about Emma Gonzalez. Yeah, right? So I get to read the scripts. I got to suggest a lot of the writers and a couple of different artists. And then after the scripts have been improved, then the artist gets to work and I get to see the art. And it's just like watching magic in real time. I'm super happy about this.
Yay!
And excited.
So are we. Matt?
Yes, hi. Sorry. As I will say, Laurie, as someone who's lived in Astoria for the last 11 years, that's a good choice of villain as a developer. So the impetus for the NIB putting together this anthology, which I'm the associate editor of, was we've been publishing daily on comics online for like 6 or 7 years. I've been with the NIB since 2014. So we publish online every day. It's all nonfiction comics, political satire, humor, and nonfiction, whether it be memoir or history comics. And we realized we wanted to put out some anthologies of our work this year. And we were going through our contributors and what we had, and we have so many queer contributors telling their stories. Independent comics increasingly is very overwhelmingly queer space. If you were to go to like a small comics convention like SPS or TCAF or something, it's just all like the queer community there is humongous. I wrote a whole thing for the intro of the book about how I don't think I would have ever found my way as a queer person without comics. So it's very near and dear to my heart, the queer comics community. And so we've got this book together from, 6 years of some of our best comics about queer issues and queer topics, and also funny stuff, and like history comics about Gad Beck, who was like a gay Jewish Nazi fighter in Germany in the 40s, and like old like lesbian and queer separatist towns out west, and and then also we've commissioned a bunch of new work for the book exclusive to it, and we've got like over 30 of our contributors in there, and it's just a lot of we try to, at the Nib, as a nonfiction publication, a lot of our mission is to, like, outside of like talking about the daily news or whatever, a lot of it is like letting people tell their own stories. Comics is a very sort of like accessible art form, both in terms of creation and reading it. So it's an easy way for a lot of people to tell their stories, a lot of people for the first time. We just try to give people that space, as the book is called.
Yeah, no, and that's great, and this is why I'm so excited about these two anthologies, because I can definitely see that there's been a lot of thought process put into this, and that taken into consideration just the different issues and the voices of the diverse individuals of the world. So one of the things I wanted to touch on was that in these anthologies, like, the world's in turmoil right now, so we know this, it's crazy. And it seems like these two anthologies will cover topics that are currently, like, it's like a premonition, like the two guys, like, no, these things weren't going to, no, I mean, you wouldn't know these things were going to happen, and we wouldn't want any of them to happen. But as I was reading and doing my research on this, like, there's a lot of stuff about social justice, inequality, racial issues, immigration, and also that touches on Diana, the Wonder Woman, the 16-year-old version of Wonder Woman. So how do you guys, so it's like, how do you feel about this? And this is why I believe they will be very impactful, because I think of the topics that they will touch, and that they're touching, and they're going to be a voice for people to not only see themselves within these anthologies, but also be able to not understand, but maybe try to understand, and also have conversations about everything that is happening right now. Sometimes it's very difficult to put into words what's happening right now, and through books, I feel we can express these things. So just wanted to hear your thoughts on what you believe these anthologies will bring.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, sure. So, like, I think a lot of it for us is like, sure, it's like comics for our times, and things are fairly uniquely bad right now for a lot of reasons. But there's almost nothing that's going on right now that you can't draw a very straight line to through the last couple of decades, the entire time I've been alive, of how world, specifically American politics, sort of function. So I think there's something about being queer or being marginalized in the other way. Like we try to go for, in terms of our contributors, we try to represent a lot of different marginalized voices, whether it be race or gender or sexual orientation. So it's sort of, I think if you are operating from those places, it was like maybe when we were putting the comics together, in the last most of a decade, like, these things are not, it's not right to say that things are obvious, but things were more self-evidently bad. And I think there's something about, I talk about this again in the intro to the book, like, in terms of queerness, not necessarily just representing, I am, gay or lesbian or non-binary, trans, like, it's not just those things specifically. It's about, like, the specific sort of, like, criminalization of these things and the sort of like revolutionary spirit of embodying these identities. And I think if you're coming from that perspective, things have always sort of been bad, you know? So I think that's maybe where a lot of the contributors in this book are coming from.
I find myself thinking a lot about when I look at the primarily straight, hetero, white men who are in power right now and have been in power for 400 years. And I think back on what were they reading when they were 14? What were they reading at 16 and 20? And if you are 18 years old right now, then you were just kind of waking up into your adolescence in the last presidential election. And this feels like the only world you've ever known, right, in terms of political awareness. And we have kids coming up to 14 now who are, again, just it's like this feels normal to them, as horrifying as that is. And I think this is such an important part for us all to remember. Because we've seen how hierarchical power structures fail everybody, particularly people who have been marginalized by those who occupy the power and the privilege. We've been in a hierarchical structure since white people came to this country and began the waves of genocide. And we have the opportunity, this is the great thing about, the only great thing about old structures blowing up, is that we get to start again. And I'm really hoping that we, following our children, because the kids are always going to lead us, right? They're the ones who are at that age where they can see the hypocrisy, they can see the injustice, and heaven knows they have the energy, God bless them. And the rest of us need to take naps. So we had this opportunity with our work, right? With all these kinds of books that we're trying so hard, all these voices we're trying to amplify, all these artists, to create a community-based, in community structures, the operative word is not power, it's empathy, right? Yeah. And if you care about kids and if you care about public libraries, you're already deeply rooted in this. Books like this, not only will they give information and representation, will help people feel comfortable about who they are, and also give them insight and love and compassion for people who might not be like they are. But it also, these books are the source of comfort and of strength for our readers. And when they can see themselves in books and when that keeps their curiosity alive, then that's how we honor them. That's how the adults in the community honor our kids for who and where they are in their lives. And they need that now.
Yeah, I completely agree with the two of you. So, Laurie, I wanted to just point out about Wonder Woman Tempest. So Diana is 16, which is, it's great to see, 16-year-old Wonder Woman, which I don't believe ever seen, so it's pretty cool. But what I do like, aside from everything that she experiences and all of the issues, she's a typical teenager. She's 16. I mean, of course, she lives in castles, she's like this girl, but she's 16 and she experiences everything that you experience when you're 16. So I feel there's representation in that, definitely in that aspect of being 16 and being weird and not wanting a party. And I could identify with it. I didn't want no big parties at 16. I was like, my mom, take me on a trip. I want to travel. So I don't want to. So I definitely appreciate that. So did you, when you thought about the character, what was your inspiration? And did you want to, make her you didn't want to make her a typical, just like Wonder Woman?
Well, the DC told me that she needed to be 16, and the story had to start in Themyscira and wind up in New York, right? As all good stories should wind up in New York. But other than that, I didn't have to worry about continuity. And what struck me first and hardest was, when you're coming and you go through puberty and you're trying to figure out who you are. She was in a community that had never seen anybody go through that before, because all the Amazons were, boom, created as adults. So can you imagine how much more difficult that would have been? I wrote this largely in the beginning of 2018, right? And I was thinking about all the hatred that was being flung at immigrants and the families seeking asylum. And that was really, really driving me. But I'm actually seeing the book through a slightly different lens now. I've always kind of seen this story that I created. It's a great metaphor for adolescence, right? For that moment where like you don't really see the world, and all of a sudden it is like in your face. You can't avoid, and that's when those amazing adolescents come through, and they're like, "This is wrong, right? I'm gonna fix this," like Emma Gonzalez and people like that. But now, a couple of years after having written it, and also kind of really trying to do deep understanding of my own privilege and whiteness, this is a story about a kid who grew up in the most profound privilege ever. She grew up in a world that was completely safe, right? That didn't have anybody suffering for, of hunger or disenfranchisement or violence or anything like that. So this is actually you talk kind of a representation that I think we need a little bit more of, showing kids who are coming from a place of safety and privilege what that is, right? To get them to reflect on their own privilege, to get them to reflect on what does this mean that my life is different from somebody who lives in a different place, and then what is their responsibility, again, to the community.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it comes through in this book because it's packed with themes. So definitely.
Can I just give a quick shout out to my artist?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the artist of this book is Leila Del Duca, and oh my gosh,
it's amazing.
And Kelly Fitzpatrick did the colors, and Saida Timofonte is the letterer. Team Diana.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just gorgeous artwork. So great job.
Thanks, Alisa.
So Matt, so you were the editor of Be Gay, Do Comics, and it's so many representations, so much diversity, and just own stories and the own voices of everyone that's featured in the book. How was the process to choose the illustrators, the artwork, and just how did that go? How did that work? Because there's so many contributors, so I'm curious about how that went.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like we have the advantage of being in this daily publication where we have tons and tons, hundreds and hundreds of artists that have worked for us in the past. And, all the editors are cartoonists also. So we've all been sort of like embedded in this community for so long that we do have a pretty good handle on, who can do what. And the great news is we've been around long enough and we're established enough that people are always coming to us. Like even a lot of cartoonists who do mostly fiction work, a lot of them have one or two or three nonfiction pieces in them because there's something that happened to them, or they have an interesting perspective on something, or they like have some obsession with some historical figure that's hasn't seen its story told. So I think we actually have just a mountain of pitches all the time from new people, which we love. We go to conventions and we're always on the hunt for like new talent and young people who haven't pitched before. But so we sort of like when we were putting this book together, it was sort of we began like a very arduous process of basically going through everything we've ever published, picking out what we think is thematically correct for this book in the long form pieces, and then we basically made a list of our favorite like regular contributors who do shorter form like satire or humor work, myself included, and like sort of like went through, picked those people, and then went through their archives and picked out like our favorite comics of theirs, or ones that were like, I think what's good about one of the things about local cartoons that's good is like a lot of them are very good sort of like time capsules for a moment in history. So it was interesting to go back and like find these things about big events and like here's what popular sentiment was at the time. And I think, and then for the book we commissioned a couple of new long form pieces, and that was like, we've never gotten something from a couple of artists that we like. We haven't got anything from a great writer named Taneka Stotts. We haven't gotten anything from Brina Nunez. There's a lot of good artists that we hadn't gotten anything from that we thought would be great additions to this book. So we just commissioned them on that. And we're not, and we're pretty used to, we also run a print quarterly. So it's like we're used to the sort of process of getting this stuff together.
Okay. So we're almost coming to the end of our conversation, but I really appreciate it, and I think a lot of the librarians that are are joining us today, they will look forward and will be recommending this, because it's definitely, I think we're in a time where personal perspectives are definitely going to be, they've always been important, but I feel they're more important than ever right now, because everyone is experiencing things and just, it's traumatic times, and we're all going through just experiencing things in different ways. So I believe these two books will give personal perspectives of things, and they will inspire conversation, and will inspire readers to be open to the stories of others, of acceptance, own voices, and just being better humans. So I'm definitely just looking forward to it. For Wonder Women of History, I'm excited to know about who the creators are. It's such a big secret, and but we know some of the women who will be featured. Who will be featured in the book. So it's Michelle Obama.
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be all kinds of great people. Can I just throw out one suggestion for the librarians to consider? I think both of these books are going to be terrific for programming.
Yes.
Have the kids in your library system, pick a snippet of their family history or their community history. Collaborate with a friend, have somebody do the writing, somebody do the art, and work out whatever they're going through in a really creative way.
I think that's a great suggestion, and myself and my colleagues, we are definitely taking notes. So I want to give you and Matt the opportunity to just close out with some statements before we end.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, a statement. Yeah, I don't know. We're very proud of this book. I have a copy here. It's very beautiful. The cover is incredible. It's by an artist named Matty G. I didn't mention that. Yeah, so I don't know. This is, I think, a great book for readers of any age. There's like some more adult material in there, but nothing crazy. I don't know. It's a great book. We're really proud of it and really happy for it to be out in the world.
I just want to close by saying that these times let us really focus in on what our priorities are. And as I mentioned earlier, those guys who have always been in power, right now, the kids who are going to be coming to our libraries or our programming, they're going to be the ones in power in a couple of decades. So all of the adults in the room, we have the opportunity to do better for them and to do better by them, and making sure that they have all kinds of materials, fiction, nonfiction, graphic novels, poetry, novels in verse, everything to feed their hungry minds. That's how we make the world better.
So that was great, and I want to thank you and Matt for giving me the opportunity to with the two of you. Total finger, and I guess I can relax.
Yeah, great job, Elisa.
Thank
you so much.
It's joyful.
Yeah, thank you, Laurie.
Great job.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Laurie, so much. That was a wonderful conversation. We are so happy that they were able to join us today. We have decided to switch up the lineup a little bit, and we are going to hear from Frankie and Pat Vegas next instead. So just ignore me for 1 second while I advance the slides, and close your eyes so you don't ruin the surprise. So we are going to have a conversation with creators and authors of Redbone, Pat Vegas, and his daughter, Frankie Vegas. Just allow me to read their wonderful bios to you first. Pat Vegas, which I feel like I need to sing. We are so honored. I just want you to know that we are so honored to have you here today. If he did offer to play his guitar, so maybe we'll have to force you later. But I know most of you know him from being the vocalist and lyricist and producer of Redbone, who had the hit single "Come and Get Your Love," Witch Queen of New Orleans, and we were all wounded at Wounded Knee. He was featured in the New York Smithsonian along with his bandmates for being the first Native American group to have a #1 single. And Frankie Vegas is an author, founder of Who's Frankie and Made Media Marketing, daughter of Pat Vegas, and writer of the foreword of Redbone, True Story of a Native American Rock Band. This graphic novel is told through the depictions of Frankie's conversations with her father, and she feels passionately about sharing her father's legacy with the world. And so do we, Frankie. And honestly, I'm so excited to have you guys both here today. And why don't you just give us a brief introduction, and then we'll start with some questions.
Yeah, we're so very excited. We're here in Los Angeles right now, obviously dealing with the pandemic and staying healthy and safe. But we're so excited to be able to be here and share this book with the world. And I know it means a lot to my dad. It's his story, and he lived it. And to be able to have Christian, who is the writer of the book, Christian and Sonia Paoloni, to depict his story in such a great graphic novel, we're just very excited about it.
We spent a lot of time together, me and Christian, so we went over the story back and forth over and over and over. So we got the real truth in there, and it's a fun book, because it's got so many things that we went through, little escapades, little things that we went through with bands and with the audience and stuff, and we had some great shows, and the book really talks about the things that we really went through. It's real funny. It's fun.
Yeah, we enjoy it, and we're excited about it.
I will point out, if you guys might not know this, but that E symbol, the librarians on the call know that it means the E-Galley is available, which means that they can view it online. And I will say that it is beautiful, and it is really fun the way that this was created, the way the art looks, the way the pages are all spread out. You really feel like you are there for the creation of, or for the whole movement of the rock band and all the songs. It feels so fun to even look through the pages. So we're so excited about it. I was telling Pat and Frankie before that last night I was doing a little research. So I was watching the 1974 midnight special of when Redbone was on, and I was singing "Come and Get Your Love" for the rest of the night. So it was so fun to see it. We were talking about how, back then there wasn't all this social media, there wasn't YouTube. So to now be able to go back in time and hear your story so in such a great way, in such a personal way, and in such a graphic way is such an honor. So let me ask you a couple. How long ago did when did the idea for this book start, and how long did it take to get to?
It took us about 2 days.
Yeah, we wish everything took that amount of time, right? I mean, I feel like the story was already there, but development took probably about like a year or so, just kind of going through meetings and stories that we had to tell to Christian.
It was very personal, so, we had to dig it out of me,
Yeah. Did you find that it was hard, or was it hard, or was it like comforting to talk about a lot of the past and like people that you've lost and all that stuff? Was that,
in the beginning,
how did you find that to be?
Kind of difficult, but I got over it, and then I cried for about 2 days, and then and it was, and it was a good story. It was fun, I mean, the book talks about a lot of personal things that I normally wouldn't talk about, but in the book I do, and it makes it interesting, and I dug deep for it, so it's really fun. Yeah,
I'm sure it was cathartic. I'm sure there was a lot of things that you probably hadn't thought about in a really long time. So, but for people that are reading it to know this for the first time, it's important to have your specific memories of the situation. So we're so happy you did it. Is there any particular part of the book that you were the most proud of, or that was the hardest for you to put in, or anything like that?
No, I'm proud of the entire book. The entire book tells a complete story of what it was like, at that time. And, we went over some obstacles and went through things that, normal rock bands don't go through, like being followed by the FBI everywhere we went, you know what I'm saying? And stuff like that, but we got past it.
Yeah.
And the people loved the music, and we gave them everything we had.
It's pretty powerful, the story in general, from just little, like you said, the nuances of, meeting the Queen and playing at Royal Albert Hall, and Jimi Hendrix inspiring them to follow their heritage and create a Native American rock band. And
he wanted to join the group.
Yeah.
He called Warner Brothers and says he's quitting Hendrix experience, he's going to join Redbone, and they told him, if you do, they'll never record again. So, you know.
Wow.
But he wanted
this is the kind of stuff people need to know. I love this. Now, Frankie, did you know, were there a lot of things that you didn't know? Like, did you know that your dad had won that singing contest when he was so young? And like, did you know all this stuff already, or were you learning stuff at the same time?
You know, it's a little bit of both, because I feel like I grew up hearing a lot of these stories from him. I was always so fascinated by what he did, but sometimes as a young girl, you forget, like, oh, my dad did all these incredible things, because it's your father, you know, so you're used to seeing them all the time and every day. And then I would hear these stories, and I'd go to shows with him when I was younger, and I would see the reaction, and I'd be amazed to see how many people really looked up to him and what movements he actually started, and just seeing so much about the Native American civil rights movement, AIM, you know, American Indian movement, and also seeing things about the other band members is what I learned as well. Yeah. Because I learned a lot about my dad and my uncle's stories just from growing up, but to actually know and read about Tony Bellamy and Pete DePoe and Butch and all these, you know, other legendary members of Redbone, it was incredible to see how they grew up as well.
We had so many people wanting to record with us, to come in the studio and record with us, because we had a certain sound in the group. The band had a sound, and we had an identity that no one had ever seen before. You know, when we first walked out on stage, people the audience would step back about 3 feet, you know, and would come on.
They'll like brace themselves, like, what are we going?
Shakers and all kind of chants and everything. People were freaked out at first, but once we got rolling, they charged the stage. You know, Europe was a trip too. The European audience just loved us, you know, and the Queen of England loved us.
That's so amazing. I'm so happy that this book was done. It's so important. Also, I love the music bioepics. I love knowing, you know, you hear a song on the radio so many times in your life, you just take it for granted, you know, and then to hear like all the work put into just that one, you know, into just that one song, it's humbling. It's an honor for us to get to know more about the story. Do you want to talk a little bit about your involvement with the Native American Civil Rights Movement and what your involvement is there?
Yes, we were performing at the during the trials in Minnesota, the Wounded Knee trials and all that. We were there, and we played we got picked up in a limo one night and driven to this one location, and in the limo with us was Marlon Brando, Russell Means, all the guys that were involved in this trial, and we all sat around drinking beers and talking about what things were developing and what was coming of it. And Brando was powerful for us, you know, like he refused to take the Oscar that year. And we talked about that, and I thanked him for that. And it was just incredible, you know. It was just a wonderful trip to go through that, you know. And the people were 100%. Now Native Americans are coming out and talking and making their noise, making their presence known, where at one time they were silent and quiet majority, you know. And I wanted them to come out and talk and stand up for the rights and stuff. And that's what we were fighting for.
Yeah, and another thing is their song Wounded Knee was actually banned from release in the U.S. Because of the controversial, you know, subject matter. Mm-hmm. And they took that record against the U.S.'s wishes, and they brought it to Europe, and it went to #1 in the Netherlands.
And it went #1 throughout Europe.
Yeah, throughout Europe. And it shows that, you know, true music that stands for something and stands for a movement of a people is going to get the word out regardless, and people are going to love it, because not only is it speaking something, you know, into fruition, something powerful, but it's also
the truth,
a great melody at the same time, you know, so it works.
Yeah.
It's so, it's such that's why it's like such an honor and privilege to talk to you, and for you to be such an important figure in this, in the movement, and to give a voice where there wasn't one, and to give people the courage to come out.
Yes.
When you started doing music, was that your goal, or was your goal to just do music? Did you have like?
At the beginning, I was a sideman, a musician that did a lot of recording sessions for. I'm on 100 different hit records that I played bass on. Well, that's what we did in the beginning because we wanted to just fit in, And I toured. I played as a group called. I traveled and played as a group called the
Avantis.
The Avantis, and then with the Beach Boys, and I traveled as the group that made this. Let's go, that's. Did
wow.
that. And also the Marquettes, no matter what shape your stomach's in. I played with everybody at one time. But and I played with the Champs, Tequila.
Oh, yeah.
And I played with them. And then finally, after a while, I realized, I have to do something more. And I have to do something for my people, and for things, because nothing was being done. Everything was silent, and the silence was driving me crazy. So we stopped doing everything and went up into the Hollywood Hills, into a house, rented a big house, and we started playing just our original music, and that's what you heard, all the albums, and we just call ourselves Redbone, which means part Indian, part Native American,
half breed.
Any part you could have a quarter. Like a Redbone is where there's a lot of Redbones in the world because the intermarriage and all kind of stuff like that. So right now the U.S. government doesn't want to acknowledge anyone that's not 100% Native American, which is wrong. Because you should be honored, you should be accepted, even if you have a quarter in your Native American blood. So that's wrong, and that's why Redbone is a new tribe of people that won't be accepted by the government. So we're our own tribe,
And he's still doing stuff now for the movement. We, the Vegas family is starting a foundation, actually, the Chance to Have It All Foundation, where we will be single-handedly accepting donations on behalf of people who would like to give to Native American tribes, and we'll be giving them directly to the foundation that we see that are actually on the front lines doing things for the community.
Yes.
So we're excited about that as well.
That's wonderful that you're still going strong. I think that we might, when we get to meet again in person, we might really have to come. We might have to hear you play at something for us. I think it would be so fun. It would be amazing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about who else is in the band with you, since you're the one that has the honor of writing the story? Do you want to just tell us a little bit about who else is in the band with you?
Well, there was my brother Laurie Vegas, the lead guitarist. He and I grew up together. We used to hide under the blankets and practice together, bass and guitar. And so then you have Tony Bellamy, who's from Orange County, who's a flamenco dancer at one time with his band, with his family. He danced flamenco and stuff, and he had this rhythm, incredible rhythm that he played on guitar, which made the Redbone sound. With Lale was playing, and I was playing, and Tony on rhythm guitar. Yeah. Then we found Pete DePoe, who was the first drummer, who was playing with Bobby Womack at the time. And Bobby Womack was a friend of the band's, and he came over one day and says to me, he said, "Pat, I've got a drummer that would fit in perfect with you guys." And we had a black drummer by the name of Gordon DeWitty, who was an incredible drummer. And he had Indian blood in him, too. So anyway, so she said, "I think this drummer will fit perfect with you." Well, and so I said, "Well, let's trade drummers." And we traded, and we got Pete DePoe. And he fit like a glove. He was perfect. And that's how Redbone got started.
Meant to be.
Yeah, I love it. And you're still playing. Well, let's pretend the world isn't the way it is, but you're still playing now, right?
Yes, I'm still playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I practice every day and keep my chops up, and just writing new music. You know, Frankie and I wrote some stuff together, and we just keep on writing and just keep. I got my songs, my catalog is building and building. You know.
Oh, I love it. I think that's so fun. Plus, I think that being a creative person probably has made the quarantining a little easier in some ways. I mean, yes, you can't perform for people, but it probably does give you time to create more and to reflect. And I think, I think it's good for a creative person. It must have some merit to it.
I'm using this time, this downtime, you know, where everybody has to stay home. You know, so I'm using it to write and put more music together. One of my songs says that sometimes I feel surrounded by 1,000 people shouting. I close my eyes and wish they disappear. Then I turn and look around me. In a place and space I find me, foreign and I fear that there's no one left to turn to. And like a soft kiss breeze that warms a summer's evening, I feel something sweet caressing me inside. It's the knowledge that there's someone who still needs me.
Oh. Ooh, I'm ready. Ooh. I just teared up a little bit. Oh, that's beautiful. I have to say, we've been doing these book buzzes once a week. I told you guys that before, since the quarantine started. And honestly, more than ever, we've realized as publishing people, as librarians, as authors, that books, art, music, they really do get you through a lot of the hard times in life. And I think that your book is a perfect example of that, where you've come out stronger for it.
Yes.
You're telling your story. Do you find that, did you think there was a strength in having it told in graphic novel form that maybe would have been lost in prose?
Yes, because for years we put up with the thought that we had a #1 song, but nobody knew who it was because they never saw Redbone until this book gives us a chance to reach the people and reach those that really want to know about Redbone, you know. And I think it's going to be interesting reading for a lot of people. Going to love it.
Yeah, and the pictures are so incredibly done. You know, the artwork. Just seeing everything done so lifelike, but still keeping that very like cartoon comic essence is so beautiful. And for them to really put a face to the music and to the name, and to, maybe reach a different generation, like a younger generation, to where they can have fun with it and they can see like, wow, these are people that made great music that I listen to nowadays as well. And also, this is something that can possibly go on for generations.
The moment in time that they can get really to know about Redbone and feel us and how we felt at the time. So it's an important book. It's an important thing.
It is. I think you're right. And I think when kids and students or, whoever learn about, Native American stories or people, and they just hear about it in a bigger picture, it doesn't work, right? You look through just a couple pages of this book, and it like almost like means more than like a whole year of learning about, Native American history, just because it's so important the way it's told, and it's really done so well. And it's funny because when I was watching some of your older videos yesterday, first of all, I have to tell you, I was in such a bad mood when I had such a long day, and I put on the music, and I was immediately like in just such a good mood. And also like the fact that work can get busy, and the fact that like programs can be hard to put together means nothing when you compare it to the fact that we get to talk to you guys today. And it just was like humbling. And it was funny because when I was listening to the music, I thought, this is making me so happy. I think the graphic novel was like the perfect way to go because it's such a colorful story that it actually really made sense. So
you get into it. You get to hear things that normally nobody would know, but it's real personal, real, it's sharing.
And we're so happy that it's going to be, shared with the world. And like you said, the music, it made you happy. And that's the whole point of everything is to inspire people and make them happy and bring joy to their world. We see little babies, the infant babies dancing to Come and Get Your Love. And it's so amazing. And we crack up because it's like, wow, they can't even speak and they feel it in their bones.
Yeah.
It's great.
They feel the beauty and sincerity that was going on at the time, and it still is. All music has that, it's a certain spiritual entity that's in there,
Yeah.
Putting on.
And I really, I'm just so glad that we're able to work on this book. We're so happy to hear your story. Frankie, do you want to add anything about like what, what's going to happen with it as far as like, because you can't tour right now, but how, if you guys are going to be doing any events online, how we can learn about them or anything like that?
Yeah, we're currently in the works right now with IDW to create a couple of different events to kind of get the word out there for the book. The release is set for September, so the official release, but I know the pre-order is available now. So we're very, very excited about that. We're super excited to be here with you and Penguin Random House and kind of, like you said, like get the word out to people. But as far as events coming, it's all a little hush-hush right now, but we're in the works for something. So as soon as we find something that will be happening, we'll be more than happy to share it and get the word out.
Yeah.
But as of right now, he's still writing, working on an album.
Yeah.
So these are all great things. I'm writing as well, working on a children's book series.
I'm also working with my son, PJ Vegas, who's an artist also.
Yeah, he's a great music artist as well. They're working on some things together.
Yeah.
But as far as the book goes, we're just, we're excited to get it out there, and we're putting together some events.
Do you think it's appropriate for the YA audience? Is the content appropriate for the young adult audience, or is it?
Oh, it is. It is.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I believe it is. Yeah, I don't think there's anything too drastic in there that could,
it doesn't go off into,
shell shock them, but
it's safe reading.
Yeah.
I didn't think I remembered anything that was not going to work for a young adult audience. I just couldn't remember. All right.
I feel like this is something generational. Like parents could read it to their kids and like you said, teach them about history in a very personal way. Yeah. From people who lived in that moment and, were able to experience things in a ways that a lot of people weren't able to.
And I'm proud of the young youth today, Native American children and stuff. They're coming out, they're speaking up and they're protesting against oil companies and stuff. It's very enlightening, very, very positive, and I love it, that they're coming out.
Well, thanks to people like you that taught from such a young age or for such a long time to be courageous and to, not just be part of other bands and be in the background for all those years, but to step out with your own story. It takes a lot of courage. It's why it's so humbling to talk to you today. And
thank you.
Thank you.
We're so happy that you're here. And I really wish that we could be somewhere where I could hear you sing, especially after you.
I promise.
It's a promise.
Yes. In the beginning, they said, you got to be careful because the FBI's following you and it could be dangerous out there. And I said, damn the torpedoes, let's go.
I love that. It's just like the FBI following a band. It's just crazy. So I love that. I love that kind of spunk. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the rebellious kind that's kind of like, oh, whatever people say, we don't care, we're doing it anyway. I love that. And I'm also like a daddy's girl, so I love that you guys are working on this so closely together. I think when you have a great dad, you should tell everybody. So.
Oh, I do. I'm a daddy's girl too. I love him so much. He's like my best friend. So we have. I love it. He's like a 19-year-old at heart, which is we will go have like late night. When this wasn't going on, but we would have late night meals and
That's right.
Go listen to live music. It's great. He's still very much lively and with it, so to speak. So
yeah,
it's been great.
I can dance too.
Yeah,
I believe that. What was I going to say? I think that when you're a musician, it keeps you young at heart, and I think this is so great. I think it's a new moment for your band. I think it's going to, because of social media and YouTube, this is just going to be a really wonderful way to reintroduce you to a new audience, and we're thrilled that you were able to come today.
Yeah, we're so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
I love you already.
Well, thank you. We thank you for getting up so early. We know you're in LA, so you guys are troopers. And we really wish you the best of luck with this book. We will do everything we can to promote it.
Thank you.
And, I'm coming to a concert.
Yes, you are more than welcome to come. We'd love to, touch base with you and have you out at any shows that are going on. And we're really excited to be here with you guys. And we really thank you for sharing the story with everybody. Yes. We can't wait for it to get out.
Thank you. Honestly, thank you so much. It was an honor to meet both of you. And have a great day. And thank you. Take care. Be safe. We'll get through this.
Yes. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so we are going to go back. I'm going to ask thank you. That was so fun. I'm sorry, I completely forgot all of you were even on the call because that was so exciting for me and so wonderful to hear from them. And I'm going to go back to my real job now and get back to the slides that we have for you today and the buzzing part of our conversation. So I am going to get my colleagues ready. And Miriam, if you want to come back on, hi. I'm going to find Erica. Thank you for sticking with us today. This has really been so fun. Gosh, what an honor to talk to him. And he really did. If we forced him, I think we really could have gotten a concert out of him. But, we don't want to get any publicity mad at us or anything. But he was really fun. Erica, I'm getting you. I'm sorry. Here we go. All right. We are going to talk to you a little bit more about some of the great graphic novels we have coming up in general. Hi, Erica. We're going to go back. Here we go. So now it's just, a plain old book buzz, but we're going to talk to you about some of our titles. We have a couple more exciting little things for you, and then we'll be done. But thank you for sticking with us. This has been so fun. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hi. All right. Oh, Erica, let's see if we can hear you. Try talking again, Erica. You don't have your little microphone muted on your keyboard, do you? All right. I can't. We're working on it. Hold on. I can't hear you for some reason. Oh, wait.
I'm coming. Here I am. Hi.
There you are. All right. Success.
Got it. I was just saying, what a hard act to follow, Kelly. That was an amazing lineup.
That was really fun.
Fantastic.
And, I think I've added a new song to my karaoke list. So we'll see if I can do it justice. I don't think I can, but I think it's on my list. So let's get to the books. Hi, Erica and Miriam. Thanks for joining us. We just wanted to remind you, we know you all get our regular newsletter, but we do have a graphic novel newsletter that goes out. It's usually twice a month, but lately it's been 1 to 2 times a month. It's been a little crazy, but you'll get all your inside scoop and satisfy your inner fanboy and fangirl. We try to give you all of the pop culture alerts, and you can download e-galleys, etc. So please sign up for our newsletter. You know the drill with the formats and what they stand for, and here's just a little key for you. And we after this is over, we did create a booth. So pretend you're at a regular library con. This is in the newsletter you got. It will be in the wrap-up. We have a whole booth filled with really fun different shelves with all different kinds of graphic novels and fandom titles for you. There's a link for you to sign up for Kodansha is going to be doing their own manga event like this where they'll tell you all the upcoming hot manga for fall. And that link is in this booth as well where you can sign up. And there's some collections for you and all different resources for you. Okay. All right. We wanted to take a moment. We were thrilled to work a couple of years ago and several times with John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis, who recently passed away. And we just wanted to take a moment to let all of you know what an honor it was to work with him on his books, the March books. They are an amazing graphic novel adaptation of his story. He was an icon and a key figure in the civil rights movement, and never stopped till the very end, fighting for justice and for his causes. And he was such a wonderful man, such a kind man. We have a picture of our colleague Hugo up here. We just wanted to let you see this picture of him doing he did a signing at ALA for us one year, and the patience that he had was unbelievable. And when I tell you the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that all came up to him and were honored to meet him, and he just had such grace and such patience and kindness for every single person that came up to talk to him. So he was an amazing man, and we just wanted to take a minute to remember him. And then we will get on to some of the books that we're excited to talk about. This is going to be a quicker book buzz than usual because we know you've been with us forever, but we do have some exciting titles to talk about today.
All right, so I'm really glad to be back this week. Hi, everybody. I'm here to buzz about more fandom titles. First up, we have Dr. Aphra teaming up with Darth Vader himself in this audiobook original, which is an expanded adaptation of the critically acclaimed Marvel Comics series performed by a full cast. Remember, it's only available on audio, and it just came out yesterday. The actors who do these voices are amazing. They can do all the characters that fans know and love, and all of our Star Wars audiobooks have the real Star Wars music and sound effects. Our first Star Wars audio original came out just last year, Dooku Jedi Lost, so this trend promises to continue, and we're really excited with this new release. In the space between worlds, we have an outsider who can travel between worlds and discovers a secret that threatens her new home and her fragile place in it in a stunning sci-fi debut that's both a cross-dimensional adventure and a powerful examination of identity, privilege, and belonging. Debut author Johnson is currently pursuing a race and robotics PhD candidateship, which is amazing. The space between worlds is informed by her personal experiences and her perspective as a woman of color writing an own voice's main character in both a bracing and urgently needed voice. Multiverse travel is finally possible in the space between worlds, but there's just one catch. No one can visit a world where their counterpart is still alive. There enters Kara, whose parallel selves happen to be exceptionally good at dying from diseases, from turf wars, from vendettas that she couldn't outrun. Kara's life has been cut short on no less than 372 worlds in total. On this Earth, however, Kara has survived, identified as an outlier and therefore a perfect candidate for multiverse travel. She is plucked from the dirt of the wastelands and given a new job. But trouble finds Kara when one of her 8 remaining doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, plunging her into a new world with an old secret. What she discovers will connect her past and future in ways she never could have imagined, and reveal her own role in a plot that endangers not just her world, but the entire multiverse. The space between worlds is for the growing readership of socially aware, award-winning speculative fiction, such as The Fifth Season, Ancillary Justice, and Robert Jackson Bennett's series and latest release, Foundry Side. You can also recommend this for fans of parallel world sci-fi titles like Dark Matter, The Long Earth, and A Darker Shade of Magic. From notable geek girl Sam Baggs, The Fangirl's Guide to the Galaxy is the ultimate handbook for ladies living the nerdy life and a fun feminist take on the often male-dominated role of geekdom. Fandom, feminism, cosplay, cons, books, memes, podcasts, vlogs, OTPs and RPGs and MMOs, and so much more. It's never been a better time to be a girl geek. With delightful illustrations and an unabashed love for all of the ins and outs of geek culture, this book is packed with tips, playthroughs, and cheat codes, including how to make nerdy friends, how to rock awesome cosplay, how to write fanfic with all the feels, how to defeat internet trolls, how to attend your first con. plus insightful interviews with fangirl faves like Danielle Page, Rainbow Rowell, and Preeti Chibber, and more. Too often, girls are told to keep quiet and calm and not to express their passion for geeky things. This book is the opposite, a high-spirited call to arms that's the first of its kind. We want to highlight the trade paperback movie tie-in edition of Frank Herbert's science fiction masterpiece, Dune, which will soon be a major motion picture directed by Denis Villeneuve and starring Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, and Jason Momoa. A stunning blend of adventure and mysticism and environmentalism and politics. Dune won the first ever Nebula Award, shared the Hugo Award, and formed the basis of what is undoubtedly the greatest epic in science fiction. It's one of the best-selling science fiction novels of all time and has several sequels to keep your readers enthralled with the world of Dune. The second Dune film is already planned, so there's still plenty of time for fans new and old alike to enjoy this classic. And I know I raved to you last week about Ready Player 2, but I couldn't help but include it again here today for our special LibraryCon presentation. So friends, behold the highly anticipated follow-up to Ready Player 1 that picks up where the last book left off. And finally, I wanted to leave myself time to buzz to you about Dracula's Child. Chillingly, evil never truly dies, and some legends live forever. The dark heart of Bram Stoker's classic is reborn, capturing the voice, tone, style, and characters of the original, yet with modern sensibility. This novel is perfect for fans of Dracula and contemporary horror. Fiendishly plotted and full of sinister invention, Dracula's Child is both a loving homage to Stoker and a thoroughly modern reimagining of the Count's undying menace, ripe with fake news and elite-dominated politics, which reflect our modern times. It's been some years since Jonathan and Mina survived their ordeal in Transylvania, and after vanquishing Count Dracula, returned to England to try and live ordinary lives. But shadows linger long in this world of blood feud and superstition, and the older their son Quincy gets, the deeper the shadows that lengthen at the heart of the Harkers' marriage. And when a gathering of old friends leads to unexpected tragedy, the very particular wounds in the heart of the Harkers are about to be exposed. This adventurous and dread-inducing tale will have readers hooked. I hope you all enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And I said that last week. Erica could talk about Ready Player 2 all day, but we had to make her talk about other titles too. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of really fun. We honestly have the privilege at Penguin Random House of working with. I said it earlier. We have our distribution partners are DC Comics, Dark Horse, IDW, Archie. You name it, we work with all these wonderful graphic novel publishers. So it's hard for us to just pick a couple. That's why we have the booth for you after with some collections in it. It's why we have the newsletter. But we just picked a couple for you today that we want to talk about. And the first one is Invisible Men. And this is here the riveting stories of Black artists who drew mostly covertly behind the scenes, superhero, horror, and romance comics in the early years of the industry. The life stories of each man's personal struggles and triumphs are represented as they broke through into a world formerly occupied only by whites. Using primary source material from World War II era Black newspapers and magazines, this compelling book profiles pioneers like E.C. Stoner, a descendant of one of George Washington's slaves, who became a renowned fine artist of the Harlem Renaissance and the first Black artist to draw comic books. Perhaps more fascinating is Owen Middleton, who was sentenced to life in Sing Sing. Middleton's imprisonment became a cause championed by Will Durant, which led to Middleton's release and subsequent comic career. Then there is also Matt Baker, the most revered of Black artists, whose exquisite art spotlights stunning women and men, and who drew the first groundbreaking Black comic book hero, Luda. This book is gorgeously illustrated with rare examples of each of the artists' works, including stories from mainstream comic books and rare book titles like All Negro Comics and Negro Heroes. We are so excited to bring this book to you. And it's perfect for libraries because it has a lot of history in there as well. And a lot of the things in this book have been unpublished forever, the photos, and it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful edition. So we're really excited for this book to come out. The next book is Chaney Speaks. This is really fun. A stunning graphic debut, the life of the legendary silent film actor Lon Chaney, the original Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame creator, as imagined by an artist whose work recalls the style and skill of early era New Yorker cartoonists. From the artist, Lou Chaney, no one will ever love me. I believe it was this near universal fear that makes Lon Chaney's characters continue to resonate with us today. On their surface, most of them are distinctly unlikable. They are monsters, outcasts, criminals. But through his unique magic, Chaney makes them empathetic. He pioneered the craft of makeup artists long before the term ever existed, and he used his expertise to hide himself from public view because what if nobody loved him? So this is a really wonderful behind-the-scenes story about a man who really never wanted to talk about his actual life. Batman, Curse of the White Knight. Ancient curses are awoken and timeless secrets are revealed in this Eisner Award-winning, nominated and explosive sequel to the critically acclaimed blockbuster Batman White Knight from the really fun, always great artist and writer Sean Murphy. With Gotham City's identity and institutions hanging in the balance, Barbara Gordon decides to take matters into her own hands. But will her rogue actions play right into the Joker's plans? After tragedy strikes, Renee Montoya steps into the fray to lead the GTO and restore order to chaos that is quickly consuming Gotham City. This is lightning quick pacing and an all-star cast of Gotham's heaviest hitters, and will keep you on the edge of your seat until the breathtaking finale of the second installment of the White Knight saga. We are so excited about that one, as always. And we wanted to give you a little bit more of a background story about Carmen Maria Machado's book. I know she talked about it earlier, although I know they got really sidetracked and talked about everything but their books, I think. So I'll give you a little bit of the plot. From the New York Times bestselling author Carmen Maria Machado comes a story so horrifying you won't dare to forget. When your memories are stolen, what would you give to remember? Follow L and V as they search for answers to the questions everyone else forgot. Shudder to think Pennsylvania is plagued by a mysterious illness that eats away at the memories of those affected by it. Elle and Octavia are two best friends who find themselves the newest victims of this disease after waking up in a movie theater with no memory of the past few hours. As Elle and V dive deeper into the mystery behind their lost memories, they realize their stories of their town hold more dark truths than they could possibly have imagined. This is going to be such a fun book for those of you that like to read graphic novels and also like to be scared, which I've started to read some scary books in the last couple of months because I feel like life has become so actually scary that the books don't seem as scary anymore. Okay, and the last one I'm going to talk about really doesn't need an introduction, but we love talking about George R.R. Martin anyway. And this is a gorgeous illustrated edition of the third book in the beloved A Song of Ice and Fire series for fans of HBO's Game of Thrones. The 20th anniversary celebration of George R.R. Martin's landmark saga continues with this beautifully illustrated special edition of the third book in the series, with 25 all-new illustrations in both color and black and white from acclaimed artist Gary Gianni, who also illustrated A Knight of Seven Kingdoms. This modern classic takes on a truly timeless feel sure to delight fans of George R.R. Martin and of Game of Thrones. We are so excited for this book. I'm sure all of you already know about it, but we love it in graphic novel form. So that is all from me of the books. And now up to Miriam. Hold on one second. All right.
Okay, and we'd like to share some game-inspired titles that are aimed to entertain, educate, and inform your readers and listeners. The first title is Minecraft, The Shipwreck by Lambda Literary Award nominated science fiction and fantasy writer C.B. Lee. When three teenagers, Jake Thomas, Emily Casada, and Tan Vuong, clean up their beloved community center, they discover a mystery in an abandoned Minecraft server and must race against the clock to uncover its secrets. Now, from an extraordinary underwater world, we go to the post-apocalyptic future in Attack on Titan. What happens when a parade of massive humanoids are roused from their centuries-long slumber? Tension-filled and action-packed, the latest volume of Hajime Isayama's blockbuster manga series and the mega-hit anime Attack on Titan stampedes towards its climax. Our next title is God of War, Lore and Legends, and written by Rick Barba with art from Sony Studios. And here fans of the hit game are invited to plumb the lore of God of War. This is a wondrous collection that chronicles Atreus and Kratos' mythic journey through a masterfully crafted universe, the fabled Nine Realms. Game Boy Modding by Greg Farrell is a complete beginner's guide to all aspects of modifying the classic Nintendo Game Boy. It's a must-have title for avid gamers and retro gamers. This book features information on how to purchase, refurbish, and customize Nintendo handheld consoles. And lastly, Paul Davies's Marvel Avengers, The Art of the Game is an extraordinary collection packed with exclusive concept sketches, character art, storyboards, and fully rendered scenes alongside fascinating insights from the talented creators of the exciting video game.
Thank you, Miriam. All right. We already did this, so let's go. We're going to skip this. All right. So we just want to thank you all so much for sticking with us today. That was so fun. We do, of course, have another episode for you next week. It's back to our regular morning book buzz to talk about some more titles that are coming out for you in the fall, and we will have this archived. We always, we always send out all of the materials that we talked about, the title list, so you don't have to keep any of your notes that you scratched down. But if you have any questions for us, please let us know, and we will send out a survey shortly after this. You can let us know if you have any questions in that as well. Thank you to all of our wonderful, wonderful panelists. That was so inspiring. It's such an honor to talk to all of you, and we can't thank you all enough for sticking with us week after week. It's really fun to always talk about books with you, and this week, even extra fun to talk about some graphic novels and some gaming books and fandom titles. So thank you. And thank you, Erica and Miriam, for buzzing with me.
Anytime, Kelly. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.